This week's episode of Murder Moose is brought to you by Rainy Days for Ghosts by Jerry Smith. The link to the EP can be found in this week's episode notes. Thanks for listening. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest Murder Moose. I'm Rod, and we have Jerry. What's up, man?
What is going on?
What's up, buddy? We are part of the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. Man, I can't even say Slash and Cast Podcast Network without putting my tongue in like tripping on it, but here we are. It's okay. It's a regular thing where a guy who podcasts a whole shit ton manages to stumble on his own words as much as I do, so...
I was on a show last week, and it was like a show I really love, so I'm not going to say the name of it. But like the whole time, the poor host had to re-record so many things because it was just an off day with talking for him. Yeah, and dude, like I've been there so many times.
Oh yeah, dude, I've been on shows where I was on a show and we recorded and talked about Texas Chainsaw 2, and it was so much fun to talk about. And the guy was recording on Skype, and the Skype just fucking destroyed his audio. Just like he was a robot for most of the episode, and me and the other guy were just like, what? And couldn't hear him. So we were just like, hopefully the audio is like, manageable on his end. Nope, it was not. It was a shit show, and everything we heard was recorded, and it was a disaster. So yeah, it's one of those things where like I've had enough times where I've been like, and just like, have brain farts in the middle of the recording.
There was one really big interview I did. I can't remember what it was from, but it was like an A-list person, and I wanted to sound so smart that I was so like full of anxiety that it made me like slur my words even more. And I was obviously like high too because I needed to be for that interview. Yeah. And I meant to say like there's such a stigma about something that I messed up, and I said that there was a stigmatism.
I love it. Oh, that just reminds me, and I don't know if I've ever talked about this on here before. So years and years ago, it was probably like 10 years ago, one of my favorite comedians of all time, Jim Norton, was touring, and my wife and I think, it had to been when I was still living in Colorado Springs, which was like, I left there in 2010. We drove up to Denver to see Jim Norton perform, and he was like doing a meet and greet afterwards. And my wife to this day, because I just was like, like I was like so excited to see this guy and talk to him, that like he had like had such an inspiration on me for like, being funny and stuff like that. And I just... my wife still mocks me to this day. Hey, remember when you made fun of you tried to talk to Jim Norton and you sounded like an idiot and you couldn't talk? And I'm like, yeah, I remember.
Jim Norton's great though.
I love him, man. I for years listened to Opie and Anthony with him, and I still like when I get stuff of his, I can see like it's that like he does that show with Sam now. Who does all the wrestling talk and stuff, but like that man is genius. And we went and saw him a couple years ago again at up here at Comedy Works, and I was like, this dude's awesome still. Like he's just never not been funny. It's his humor's not for everyone though, because it's super dark. And not everyone can enjoy super dark humor, right? It's like, it's not for all. So
yeah. My problem is all the comedians that I either get into or that I have been into usually die.
Yeah.
It's like Mitch Hedberg, gone.
Yeah.
Bill Hicks, gone. Robin Williams, gone.
Yeah. It's the thing. They're all dark, man. And it's like a lot of them. And Robin Williams talked about it. Like, it's that, like, the people who are the saddest are often like trying to make others, you know, laugh instead. And that's like that Robin Williams, you hear everything about him. He's like renowned for just being like the most genuine dude in the world. And what happened with him. And it's just like, yeah, because he was just trying to avoid the sadness in himself. And so he tries to avoid the sadness in himself by spreading happiness for others, you know? So
what's funny is that like we're having like a semi-serious conversation right now about comedians with depression, and I'm trying to like pay attention, but then I see like your animals having like a full-on Streets of Rage street fight behind you.
Yeah. My bulldogs my little Frenchies are like beating the crap out of each other up in
so cool.
The kitchen. They have lots of fun, man. They're not in the kitchen. They're in my living room. I don't know what room I'm in because I'm looking the opposite direction than I am like, but yeah, they're having a good time. They're little troublemakers. No, it's funny how, I mean, it's not funny, but it's like one of those things where it's just the human condition, right? The human condition of what it means to be a person. Like being a person never is simple. It's always like there's always a million things, and you can never know what was going on with a person, and you know all that stuff.
And like I've found just like from my own personal background that usually when I'm online, especially like on Twitter and stuff, and I'm trying to be as helpful as possible to other people, that's usually when I'm cycling and struggling the worst myself. Yeah. And so like I'll have people be like, man, you're always trying to help people. And it's just like, no, just because like I'm miserable. It's almost like a serotonin thing or something where like I think positivity kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that, and it keeps your mind off of it, right? Because that's one of those things that if you're ever struggling mentally, getting trapped in your own fucking loops inside your own head is the worst place you can be, right? It's like that thing where I know depression's not something I've fought myself really, but like anxiety, which I mean, anxiety is like next door neighbors to depression, right? Because anxiety leads to depression and whatnot a lot of the times, right? But it's like I'll wake up in the middle of the night, my brain is going like vroom, 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 vroom about everything. You go, oh shit. And that's the kind of thing, right? And so it's like anything to keep you from just being stuck inside that own, like it's your own, we're going to do malignant, so your own mind prison, right? You're like, you're keeping out of that, and you're keeping free, and you're keeping in a place where you're like, okay, yeah, this is like, at least I don't have to sit there and just only think about this one thing, right? So it's, it's funny because like all the years, like you learn things and you like grow, and like going to the small amounts of counseling I've gotten to go to, is you learn things that help you fight that stuff, right? And help you try to get better. And that's like all you could do is try. So, yeah. Okay, Jerry, I have to talk about this. You had a traumatic event the other day, and I'm still kind of upset about you you. And I someday I'm gonna have a beer with you, as we may do next Friday, and get the name of the person who hurt you and go after their kneecaps. But you were sitting in a room with Jamie Lee Curtis and John Carpenter and Jason Blum, and some douchebag ruined the experience for you.
Yeah, dude, that day, like I know a lot of people won't understand it, like my obsession and lifelong adoration of Jamie Lee Curtis, but you know, like as a kid, and I tend to bring this up a lot, not in detail, but just, you know, surface level. As a kid, I went through very abusive situations, and Halloween was like the first series, and Laurie Strode specifically, was the one character that just made me as a kid feel like, hey, this impossible thing to defeat can be defeated. You just got to hang in there. You got to endure. So my entire life has been just wanting the opportunity, not even to go into detail and make it about myself, but just the opportunity to talk to Jamie Lee Curtis about how I think powerful a lot of these movies can be. Yeah. You know, especially the 1-2 punch of 2018's Halloween and Halloween Kills. For me, dude, those two movies back to back, they have so much to say about trauma, about how trauma does not give a single fuck about you, even though you think it's all about you. You think it's coming for you, but it doesn't care about you whatsoever. You're just another fucking person. So
trauma is a force of nature.
Yes, 100%. So getting the opportunity to interview Jamie Lee Curtis, and you know, like I've interviewed Carpenter a few times, and he's God to me, but like it's just like every time I interview Carpenter, I usually freeze up. So I just you know, it was whatever. But Jamie Lee, so the day of, I get an email saying, "Oh, it's going to be roundtable interviews," which are already a bad sign because they're the worst. The worst. So basically, you'll get a few questions and it'll go like, you ask one, next person will ask one, next person will ask one. So I get in there and this fucking dude, he was the third person asking a question. So I went from being like paralyzed in fear before, like even telling my wife, I can't do this 5 minutes before. And she's like, yeah, you can. And you're going to fucking basically buck up. Which seems like she's always that person for me, like telling me like, dude, can you fucking chill and just get shit done? But
well, that's a side note, but that's like something a good partner does.
Oh, 100%.
It's like that thing where they are there. I mean, if you're gonna live and be with someone for a long time, if you can't do that for each other, why the fuck are you even together?
Exactly.
Right? Like
no, dude, I think it's 100% a great thing.
Yeah.
But so finally I was like, you know what? Fuck yeah, I'm gonna do this. There's no way I'm not gonna do this.
Yeah.
And I had myself psyched out. Okay, this is what I'm going to ask. This is what I'm going to ask. This is what I'm going to ask. But even if I only get the chance to ask a single question, I know exactly what I'm going to ask. And it was a question that made my voice shake just saying it out loud. This was going to be my moment. And here's the deal. Not even just the childhood surviving thing that made me latch onto Jamie Lee Curtis. I had, and I don't talk about this very often just because it's such a horrible part of my life, but I struggled with a very bad painkillers addiction for years. Like I'm talking about on a good day, maybe 8 Vicodin, a couple Norco, some Flexerol, some Klonopin, all in a cocktail just to see, hey, can I fucking off myself today without, you know, someone can say, hey, it was an accident at least. So I struggled with that for years, and I finally kicked it when I met my wife. And that was 100% why. 100% that like I was like, hey, I'm with someone, I'm dating someone that I fucking like, and I like these feelings I'm feeling. I don't want to feel something else in this. So I went cold turkey.
You don't want to be numb
constantly
anymore.
So I went cold turkey immediately and fucking beat that.
Which, by the way, is fucking bonkers, man. That just shows
my God, yes.
How stubborn and like strong-willed you are, because it's a little bit of both, right? Because there's a stubborn like fuck this, I'm not, but like but it's a strength thing because, man, I've never taken any painkillers in this world besides like Percocets for after getting my wisdom teeth out, but they've always scared me, man. That shit is fucking terrifying.
Oh, it's hard. Yeah, dude, I was like shaking for days, but a few years ago, right around the time Halloween 2018 came out, like I was just struggling emotionally with a lot of stuff in my personal life, a lot of stuff that I just didn't get help for at the time, and I should have. And I was just struggling, and I kind of felt alone in the sense like when you're depressed, and I've lived with like very, very serious depression my entire life. And like really bad suicidal ideation, which is never fun. So a few years ago, something happened, and it just knocked me for a loop. I didn't get help for it. And, you know, when you're depressed, you can have a room full of people that love you, but you'll still feel completely alone because it's a lie. It's just a chemical lie that your brain's telling you.
Yep.
So I was feeling really alone. And then out of nowhere, I was just cruising YouTube, because that seems to be the rabbit hole of everything I do every day. And there was a new,
I know that one.
right? And there was a new interview with Jamie Lee Curtis on there. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And the whole interview was her calling herself an addict because for a good decade, she was really badly addicted to painkillers.
Yeah.
And like hardcore while being A-list, you know? Like, and like that just spoke to me like, wow, that's another thing from my life that this person who seriously kept me alive when I was 7 and 8, you know?
Yeah.
And so there's this photo that Entertainment Weekly put out, and it's Jamie Lee Curtis, how she really looks, holding and kissing the head of Laurie Strode. And it's my favorite photo of all time. My wife went to at least 14 different stores looking for that issue just to get that one photo to frame for me. So I have it at my desk.
Yeah.
So basically, long story short, I had this one question that if I was only going to ask one, this would be the question. And it fucked me up to even ask the question, but I was like, yes. So two people get their shit out of the way. And this fucking dude wearing this awful Christmas sweater, he asked 5 or 6 questions in a row. And they were long fucking questions. And the moderator just fucking sat there with pretzels in his mouth.
That's what I asked you after you told me that you didn't even get to ask a question. And I go, wasn't there a moderator? Because none of that stuff is like.
No, dude, there was.
Dude,
dude. And then they were like, yeah, we have time for one more question. And so, ask your question. And I just looked at my wife like, what the fuck? My voice started shaking. I immediately, dude, I was supposed to interview the entire cast and crew of that movie. After that fucking happened, I got up and left.
Yeah.
Like I was it was seriously the biggest professional, not even professional, because fuck that, but biggest personal moment of my entire career.
Yeah.
And what sucks is like that night we were supposed to take our daughters to their first concert because they're really into Princess Nokia, and I got them tickets. So my wife and I took them to the concert, and I was such a fucking buzzkill that whole ride. Yeah.
Dude, you had this moment and you had it taken away by a selfish prick. And this is okay. I get flustered about things all the time. I have a temper, and it's a lot to do with the ADHD and the, ups and downs of emotion, right? And so the thing that offsets me though, and like sends me over a rage edge more than anything is fucking motherfuckers who act like they're more important than everyone else. And so one of my favorite stories of all time. So there's right by the Alamo Draft House by my house, which still isn't fucking open. I'm losing my fucking mind talking about that. But there was this little cupcake store. And so my wife and I go in there to stay. I think it was after a movie, and there was this couple in front of us. This bitch pulls up in her like Lexus SUV, parks on the fire lane in front of the store. It's like, an outdoor, shopping center, right? Mm-hmm. Walks into the store, cuts in front of the people in front of us, and starts ordering. And I'm like, there's a line. And she's like, I was in here before. I'm like, you fucking cunt. I've never called anyone a cunt in like real life and done. That's a word I drop as a joke, like when it's funny. Like I was playing Phasmophobia with some friends on my stream this morning, and I'm like calling ghosts cunt because it's funny. But I called this lady a cunt for real because it was such an entitled bitch thing. And so it's like shit like that. Like when you're telling me the story, I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
The motherfucker argued with Jamie Lee. Like he asked the stupid fucking wonky. See, now I'm getting pissed. I never get this pissed. He asked these stupid fucking wonky questions, and it was just like he was like, okay, so after dealing with Michael Myers for decades, does he have a sense of humor? And I was thinking the whole time, what motherfucker? What? And she's like, no. And he goes, well, the way he displays his victims, how can you say that? And I was thinking, what the fuck? That's what I got robbed from. That motherfucker in the sweater.
What? Okay. Also, why is he wearing a Christmas sweater to a fucking interview about Halloween Kills?
I don't.
It's October.
Dude, I forgot the guy's name already, but if anyone else was in that Halloween Kills junket, please let me know, because I'm gonna fucking send that guy some Anthrax. Not really, but dude, like a couple Anthrax albums.
Dude, it's just man, and that's the problem that is how much of what is wrong with our society right now is self-entitlement. That person thought he was more important than everyone else in that room, and that his questions were more important and more meaningful to everyone in the world. And so he was going to be the important person, and he was going to ask the things. And the dude who the moderator probably either A had dealt with this piece of shit before, or B was like, fuck it, I'm not getting involved. And you're like, man.
See, I'm such a passive person, which is weird because based on how I look, even dude, especially in the last year, I was just laughing with my wife about this yesterday. I've had so many people think I'm going to beat them up in the last few months. Yeah. And it's like, dude, I get that maybe I look a little rough around the edges, but dude, I was a straight A student my entire academic career. Like, I only got in trouble at school for like distributing Stephen King novels to the other fourth graders. I'm not a fighter.
Well, dude, it's that weird thing, because you and I both are covered in tattoos, that people think that because we're covered in tattoos that they're that we're like scary or something like that. And it's like, dude, I told you this, like this fucking piece of shit that my wife used to be friends with. She works with a guy who's like was sexually harassing her, and this guy that she used to work with, who my wife had considered a friend at one point, was like trying to be cool with this guy and said something really fucking disgusting about my wife. And I sent him a text message where I'm like, you ever say anything like that about my wife again, and I'm gonna you're not gonna like the results, you stupid little shit, or something like that. And sent it to him, because my wife and I have the same Apple account. And he responded to my wife like, I'm sorry I did that, have a good life, and was just like the worst apology ever. But I was laughing because I'm like, this motherfucker was actually afraid of me, and I've never been in a real fight or ever hurt anyone or any of this shit. I'm like, it's kind of amusing going, well, like, what do you think? I'm not a fighter. I don't hurt people. I don't do any of this stuff, man.
There was a situation when I wrote for Dread Central. I probably shouldn't have said that when I tell the story, but there was a situation when I wrote for Dread Central where one of their writers was really just like misogynistic on a post, and so much of Twitter was coming at Dread Central over it. And to be honest, I kind of had gotten tired of sticking up for them when they let people do really stupid things. And so during the writer's call, everyone was just like, because there was a weekly writer's call, everyone was just like, whoa, I don't know what to do. You know, should we let him go? Should we do this? And then one of the former editors there was just like, yeah, but he's so good with SEO and all this shit. And that angered me. And I go, if that dude or anyone had said what he said about the actress in that post about my daughter, I would knock him the fuck out. Yeah, and I guess just me saying that made that editor think that I'm going to beat him up to this day. So I've had two different people saying, hey, so-and-so really thinks you're going to beat him up. And it's just like, what? Like,
it's man, that's why it's like, it's always like the people who talk like that and say shit like that and do those things are doing it for attention, and 99% of them are just scared human beings. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just scared human beings who have just like are crying out for attention, and that's how they cry out for attention. So, oh man. Okay, I wanted to talk about one more thing before we dive into talking about Hush. I said I watched this morning, and I'm amazed you haven't watched this yet. I watched VHS 94 this morning, which I approve of a lot compared to, what was the third VHS called? Was it VHS? It wasn't
VHS Viral.
Yeah, was real bad, like real bad.
There was one segment in that one that I loved, but the rest of it, it was Benson and Moorhead's kind of skaters versus the Mexican cult thing. I liked that one in VHS Viral, but the rest, man, was bad.
That one was cool. That was like, that was the best one in there. But I did watch it this morning. It's on Shudder now, and it was cool. Like, the one thing that I because it obviously is called VHS, it's all set up, even though it's a widescreen, most of the movie, like with that, like the old VHS, like static lines across it. And it's worse or best, like, or better, depending on where you are in the movie. It makes it like the movie is a little dark at times, but the stories were generally pretty entertaining. And I liked a lot of it. It was there were weird nods that reminded me of things like The Howling and stuff like that. And dude, there's a section in that straight up I'm watching and I'm like, this is fucking Tokyo Gore Police.
Wow.
It's like that kind of weird. Like there was the guy who did the cult one from VHS.
Safe Haven, dude. I love that. That's my favorite VHS one. Yeah, Safe Haven from 2. Yeah.
The Indonesian guy.
Yeah.
I think it's the same guy because this one was all Indonesian
like
too.
Timo, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's doing the Train to Busan remake next. Yeah, I know.
Oh, stop remaking stuff. Stop. I did not need to see Thanos fucking Scarlet Witch. I didn't need to see it, and I won't ever watch that movie. Don't ever. Nope. Never gonna watch it. But no, I was going to say I had a really good time with it. It's like an hour 40 minutes. It was the thing with these that are always like debatable. I wasn't all that into the overarching storyline,
like the wraparound stuff.
Yeah, that was okay. But dude, after I feel like those are so hit and miss with all those. But like, man, the one that Shudder put out last year, or this year, the one about in the like funeral home.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I liked that one. Scare Package is good too.
Yeah, but the funeral home one has such a good story, like wrap around that like brings the whole thing together. It's I don't know. This one was like it's okay. I would say, and probably the weakest part of the whole thing. But yeah, I enjoyed it. So like, definitely check that out. It is. What are you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say what's funny is I've had a screener for VHS 94 for I think a month or two. I just haven't got around to watching it.
Yeah,
I didn't even realize it was on Shudder. But what's funny is a lot of the studios will send me like screeners, like links to watch them like before they're out. So back when VHS 2 came out, I was just like, yes, I got a link to watch it a few months early, and I didn't realize that my internet was being shoddy. So it kept buffering in this one segment, and I thought it was part of the movie. So I seriously sat there for 45 minutes going, this is such a fucking weak segment. until my friend was like, dude, I think your shit's just buffering.
Oh my God, that's so funny. That's so funny. Dude, I've been getting weird like intros, like including I've been getting more just from this podcast, like onto the podcast email and stuff, and there's so many of them, and I'm like, most of them just look like, you know, more like B movie horrors that are just trying to get out to people, and it's just been more of like not having time to watch all these things, so I haven't, but yeah, VHS 94 is again, it's another, dude, I've not like. There's not been one thing that Shudder's been put out that hasn't been entertaining. Yeah. Like, at least. And I say that all the time, but like, even the stuff that they put out, like, or distribute here from other countries that, like, I'm not, like, me and Josh months ago did Skull.
Yeah, I didn't watch that one. I know what you're talking about.
It's not great. It's fun, but it's not great because it's very, like, it very much feels like people who don't know how to make a movie wanted to make a movie kind of thing, and it's fun, and it's got some cool kills, but it's a little messy, right?
The only one that was on there that I watched and I was just like, this is not for me, but I had to watch it because I was getting paid to review it, was The Pool.
I didn't watch that one. That's the one that like the guy stuck in the bottom of a big like Olympic pool with a tiger. Yeah, right?
And it's like, I think it's like a gator or like a crocodile or something like that. Yeah. But what kept pulling me out, and dude, I am so into like low budget films. Like, I don't give a shit if it looks fake as long as you're having fun with it. You know, you have me. But the fucking animal or the gator or whatever the fuck it was looked like it was like a GIF.
Yeah.
Like it was so bad. It was like Birdemic quality.
Yeah, I watched the trailer and I was like, eh. Speaking of bad CGI, real quick before we talk about Hush, one last thing. That the new Resident Evil trailer dropped. Did you watch this?
I haven't watched that yet, only because I'm so scared to watch it because I love the game so much.
I do too. The CG in the trailer, it might be worse than Sharknado. Like,
oh my god,
I can't describe. Like everything else, kind of has that like cheaper look to it because like. You know, I don't know if you like people were mad that Leon's a Hispanic dude, which is stupid as fuck, but like whatever. I meant it's stupid as fuck that they're mad about it. But man, they have the dogs in that trailer and then they show liquor at some point and I'm like, you guys put this in this trailer and I'm like, and this is a month out. This comes out in November.
Oh Lord. Like, they can't do the Sonic the Hedgehog thing and fix it.
No, oh no.
Do you remember when Cats came out and it wasn't even done?
Yeah, Cats. My favorite man. My favorite. One of my favorite streamers and friends in the world. Her name's Katie Peters. She raised a shit ton of money for St. Jude this year on her stream, and one of her stretch goals was to watch Cats and do a like record herself's reaction to it and. Just like watching, so it's like watching someone watch like the Red Wedding from Game of Thrones. You're just watching it. You're like, dude, the horror on her face.
Dude, my wife and I got high as fuck and went to see Cats opening night.
Yeah,
dude, I recommend that more than anything in this world because I didn't even know if what I was watching was actually on screen because I was like, this is so bonkers, man. This is good weed.
What is in my weed? Because I want it all again. And
that must have been catnip, man, because that shit was wild.
Dude, I feel like people that like see, I've never watched Cats, and it is a lot to do with why I just kind of sit out there and on the outside and just watch people just like destroy it. But that was one of those things I did hear about that movie. Like the people that were like into the movie when it came out, half of the reviews were like people who went into it like on drugs of some kind. And
like, what are you expecting? You're watching a movie with people dressed up like cats singing songs about being cats. Like, are they thinking that it's fucking like, I don't know, like Ben-Hur or something? It's Cats.
I wish they would have kept their buttholes because I don't want to see the butthole cut of Cats. I'm not gonna watch it till I can see the goddamn butthole cut of Cats.
Right,
man. That movie, man. Yeah. And speaking of, we're gonna go transition from a disaster of a movie to a really, really good movie. Yeah, we're gonna talk about the 2016 Mike Flanagan movie that I don't know, did Netflix buy this right away or did they? I don't know what.
Dude, it was kind of like a surprise drop actually. Like I remember covering South by Southwest that year.
Yeah.
And it premiered there. But like it premiered there and then out of nowhere it went to I think Netflix maybe a month later.
Yeah.
And this was one of those movies that I mean I could be wrong. So if anyone's like a scholar on Hush, wrote a thesis on Hush, tell me I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But I think this is one of those movies that Blumhouse did for a while that was kind of like under their Tilt banner to where like they would do movies that were like straight to streaming or straight to video and didn't kind of go all out theatrical for. And I remember not even knowing this movie existed until it dropped.
Yeah. I remember, I think this movie became like a cult classic. Mm-hmm. Really, like this movie got like word of mouth faster. And I probably ended up watching it in like 2017 or 2018. So it was a little while after. It was like one of those things like, oh, I'll watch that because that's one of the downfalls of like streaming platforms. Cause you're like, oh, it's going to be there. Like, you know, you don't have to worry about it. And, when I finally did, I was like, damn, I waited. And it's funny because like I rewatched it with my wife and my wife is weird with watching horror, but she got real into it and she enjoyed herself. So I mean, she just loves everything Mike Flanagan's done that she's watched. She started with all the Netflix stuff. So it's like, but man, it's one of those movies that it's real simple in premise, but it's just executed so beautifully, right? It just shows that Mike knew what he was doing when he made this movie, and he knew how to took a simple premise, and I guess I assume that this was another like had little budget and just him and his wife wrote it and were like, okay, cool, we're gonna do this.
Dude,
and,
this movie cost barely $1 million to make, and they planned out while writing it. They planned out and like kind of like did the choreography and just planned out everything about this movie in their own home for months and months to get it so down. To the point to where, like, I remember reading that when they went to go film it, they had to realize, hey, this isn't our home. We got to fucking figure things out now. But, like,
you got to change things a little bit, yeah.
And it's such a good, I love kind of like home invasion or kind of contained movies because they freak me out, even if they're not like super scary. Like, I am so scared of home invasions that, like, dude, The Strangers fucked me up for a week when I saw that in the theaters. But like this one is such a good example of taking like something so simple, but like that there's like so many of us are afraid of, and I think that's what makes it so effective.
Yeah, you're taking a primal fear because like your home is supposed to be your safe space, right? And you go and like from some of the early home invasion films, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I still feel bad for Leatherface. I mean, he was just sitting there at home and people came into his house. He was just trying to do some chores and these people came in. That Leatherface is the good guy in Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
I've always thought that. Dude, I'm like, okay, the dude was mentally challenged. You know, he was a fragile person who was raised by people that aren't very good. And then these strangers just come into his house, and you know the dude's stunted. Like, why wouldn't he react that way?
It's people who look at that movie any other way. I don't know what to tell them. I really don't. But man, that's funny that they took all that work because man, it makes sense. And dude, you were talking about this, and we'll get into it in a second. This movie is almost a silent movie. Like there is the main character is obviously played by Kate Siegel. His wife is Maddie, and she's deaf, and so the whole movie is from her perspective. And the bits of sound that do happen are either from the three other characters that are in it, or you get some inklings of what's going on in her head and how she sees the world, because she wasn't always deaf. She gained the deafness through when she had meningitis when she was 13, right?
Yeah, dude. Like, I think this movie's such a good example of good sound design because it's really hard to keep anyone's attention these days, just in general. Because I mean, we live in a time where, you know, I'm not blaming James Wan, but with the Saw editing kind of took over a lot of horror for a long time to where like films weren't allowed to like let themselves breathe. And I think that's the thing that really caught me off guard with Hush the first time I watched it. Is like, other than some sound design, some white noise stuff or like an ultrasound, or like there's such a good use of like ambiance in this one. Like just like the noises that we hear, you know, with like the floorboards creaking or like the way that our houses sound. Like that feels like another character in Hush, you know, because we're put into this character who can't hear what's going on, and we're kind of like living vicariously through them. And so these little pieces of noise, it makes like like you said, I mean, the other characters, that's about it. Other than that, it's pretty silent.
Yeah, the movie does things that are it's incredibly like especially your first watching. Like I've watched this like 3 times now, and the first time you watch it and you start seeing this, like, it's a fucking terrifying effect of like this guy coming into her home, and like he figures out real quickly that like she's not hearing him, and this sadistic motherfucker is like, it's like you talk about go back to catnip. This guy is like, it's like catnip to him, and like fucking turns him on in like his ability to fuck with this woman.
And there's no reason. And I think that's why anytime I talk about the Halloween series, I usually have to pinpoint to where I have issues with it. And I mean, I love that series so much, but the sister twist in Halloween 2, I cannot stand because it took away the lack of reason why Michael Myers went after Laurie. This dude in Hush has no reason whatsoever other than he's just a bastard. I mean, there's that one scene. Yeah. There's that one scene where she's trying to reason with him, saying, "Hey, I haven't seen you," and so he lifts up his mask just to be like, "Okay, well, basically you have. I'm going to kill you now."
Yeah. That's it's funny because that same scene happens in Haunt.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen your face and lifts up the mask, and it's that thing where it's like, I don't give a fuck. Yeah, that's like last night Joe Bob had what's his name, the director of Halloween Kills and all the Halloween movies on the show, and he was talking about the same thing. He basically said that the sister twist was entirely why they took Halloween 2 out of that timeline, because they wanted Michael to be this killer that, just doing it because he can or because he wants to. It's the same thing with this guy. This guy just wants to fuck with people, and I'm guessing you have. Have you seen Them? The French movie?
I love that movie.
It's very much along those lines too. It's like, or The Strangers. You're talking about The Strangers. It's all the stuff that's like, this just happens because it could. Like, it doesn't. There's no reason behind it.
There's a plot line in Halloween Kills, and I don't think I'm spoiling anything really because it was a big part of 2018. Where in Halloween Kills, a good amount of it, everyone's thinking that Michael's coming after Laurie in the hospital. That fool does not care about her whatsoever, and the fucked up shit happens only when people go after him in 2018 in Kills. And well,
dude, I was gonna say the one of the most fucked up things in all of Halloween is the idiots in 4, the lynch mob from 4, and it kind of seems like Halloween Kills borrows that element a little bit.
That times 40. I always someone asked me how Halloween Kills was, and I couldn't. The studio said don't say anything until the 13th, so I was like, okay, well, I won't say much. But then a friend of mine's like, okay, well, can you tell me? Maybe can you compare it to something? I said, those redneck idiots in Halloween 4? They're like, yeah, and I go, that's the whole movie.
Yeah,
and they were like, yes,
dude. The most gone over factor in that whole situation. Those motherfuckers executed some random poor dude. And then we're like, okay, we're gonna keep going. We got more shit to do.
Fucking, that's funny because my wife, I had this idea when I was really high, which is I guess every night. But I had this idea that I was just like, hey, I want to get a whole graveyard of graves on my right leg tattooed of random characters that nobody gives a shit about. Like I have Demon, the guy that ate the enchiladas and died on the toilet in Friday 5. I have him. I have Ben Tramer that got hit in Halloween 2 because Loomis chased him into a street. And next to him, I have a grave for Ted Hollister, the dude that got shot in the bushes in Halloween 4.
Those motherfuckers murdered a dude, and then we're like, okay, they're just like, we're gonna keep going. Cool.
Yeah, fucking. I'd be like, Earl was like, oh, no big deal, and then like 5 minutes later, he has Michael Myers like fingers in his throat.
Yeah, man, it's so like.
I love
it. Also, I will never understand on Halloween 4 how Michael is like hanging out of the truck and like getting up into the truck to murder everyone, and no one in the cab of the truck notices. I'm like, how did you not notice this 6'4" huge motherfucker just plomping around murdering everyone and the best, in your truck?
And the best part of that whole scene, oh fuck, I could talk about that forever, is that poor stuntman. He throws one of the dudes out of the truck, and the stuntman bounces on the ground so hard.
That truck was going. It wasn't going 90, but it was going decently fast. It was probably going 15, 20 miles an hour, and they made it look a little bit faster. But that shit, man, bounce, dude. Go trip and fall on pavement like now, going walking speed, and tell me how it feels. It fucking hurts.
Oh, dude, yeah.
So I want to talk about like another thing about this movie that I fucking love.
Mm-hmm.
the mask of that killer is fucking dope. Like,
yeah.
It has a very unique element, and it's very like memorable. And we've talked about it on the show before. Like we talked about what the fuck is that movie called? Not a history. The movie with the guy from Cabin in the Woods. Oh, what the fuck was it called? That's another Shudder movie. Something about violence. I can't think about it. Where he was a comic book writer.
Yeah.
Something violence.
I know what you're talking about.
But the guy in that movie
Random Acts of Violence, right?
Yeah, Random Acts of Violence. That's what was it. He had the very like the welder mask in it and stuff, which was okay looking and stuff like that. But you talk about like that when it comes to like killer movies and slashers, and this is a slasher. It's a very, I mean, it's a home invasion slasher kind of thing. But like this, so the mask was real important. And it's funny because like. I feel like the character ends up being scarier after he takes the mask off. Like, it was specifically referring to like the scene you were talking about when he goes, well, he takes the mask off after she says, "I haven't seen your face," right?
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I agree 100%. Yeah.
Were you down with it? Do you like the mask a lot?
I love the mask, and especially with the kind of hood thing he wears over it.
Yeah,
I like it, but I think that when he takes the mask down for a minute and he kind of like shows it to her, I do think that adds to how scary it is, because it also shows, hey, this is just a random person who wants to kill you. You know, like it's easy for us to get lost in characters that are wearing a mask because we don't identify that they're an actual person beneath, you know, and like knowing that, I always found that scene in The Strangers super scary. When they take off their masks, we don't see what they look like, but just to show them that, while basically so they can look in their eyes as they're murdering the main characters. Yeah. Like, that shit's crazy.
Well, dude, talk about it. Like, nothing is scarier. And like, I was just streaming with my buddies, Phasmophobia, I was talking about. Then, and my buddy was telling me this, like, in the middle of the night, he heard something, and you just like, you hear a weird noise in the middle of the night in your house, and it's fucking panic. Like, I have a pistol on my bedside, and I've grabbed the pistol and started going around my house like it's a fucking like I'm in like Tom Clancy in a Tom Clancy novel or movie or something like that, because you're like, what's in my house? Ah!
Dude,
thing, you know?
My house is, there's no way my house isn't haunted, because there's so much weird shit that, like, sound wise. I have a Dr. Loomis figure displayed in a very specific place, and out of nowhere I woke up one day and the figure was gone, and my Laurie Strode figure was like sideways stuck to the wall. No shit, dude. I took pictures of that. But like one night I showed my kids Sinister for the first time because they were just kind of being dicks. And so my wife was like, so we showed them Sinister, and they were so scared, but so was my wife. And so that night we were sleeping, and then at night at like 2 a.m, some random person rang our doorbell and then walked away. I've had to check our house every night since then because of that stuff. Even the slightest noise, you think someone's in your house.
Jerry, I have to ask you though, when your kids are being a shit, is it really a good idea to show them a movie where the small children murder their entire families?
My whole life has been a series of really bad decisions when it comes to that stuff. It always backfires. Like 3 a.m, they'll be at my door, and I'll be like, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that.
You ever see those, like, I don't remember when it happened. It was a couple years back when those people were dressed up at like clowns and like ringing people's doorbells in the middle of the night.
That was right by here, actually. That was close to Bakersfield, which is maybe an hour away from here. That, or they would stand on the corners and just smile.
Yeah, that shit was fucking. I don't hate clowns like normally. Like, in clown movies can be pretty cool. Clown. The movie Clown is fucking dope. If you haven't seen it. Yeah, Clown is fucking dope, and I really like Stitches too, which is now on Shudder.
Yeah,
yeah. That's Scottish, or is it Irish?
I think it's Irish. Yeah, I interviewed the star of that movie when it first came out. That dude was a stand-up comedian, and that dude was one of the funniest interviews I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, dude, he does a good job of doing that. And like, it's
why
almost
isn't
like
that
Freddy
a series?
Krueger. Because it was Irish.
Oh man, that would be so huge here if it was done right.
Dude, Yeah, dude, there's a lot of Irish stuff that I've seen now, or not a lot, but everything I've seen has been entertaining as fuck. Like The Hole in the Ground was awesome.
Oh yeah.
That Stitches movie was awesome.
The Hallow is really good.
Yeah. There's been a lot, man. And it's just like, yeah, it just doesn't like get attention because it's not American, right? It's funny because it's like even Australian horror, like it's like you go back to things like I still think The Loved Ones should be one of those most talked about horror movies ever because that movie is so fucking like shocking, basically.
That director got shafted so hard twice in a row. Like The Loved Ones was supposed to come out and it got delayed until there was that weird intersection of like video and streaming to where it just kind of eventually got released and no one watched it. The second one was supposed to have a bigger theatrical release, but didn't. That was The Devil's Candy.
I haven't seen that one.
Dude.
Oh, maybe I have.
That movie is so fucking cool. It is like a satanic heavy metal fucking horror film. I love that. That's another home invasion one. It's great.
I think maybe I have seen that. I don't know. It's all the fuck. And I've talked about this in here. It's the one thing about like indie horror is that often their names are like just nondescript or not like too plain, you know?
That so or like wasn't there like 4 or 5 Spiral movies that came out like in the last 2 years?
Yes. So me and Josh at one point were supposed to do Spiral on this show, not the cult one that was on Shudder. Mm-hmm. And Josh watched some other weird like Middle Eastern like drama Spiral movie and so it's that generic and then the Chris Rock Spiral came out last year. So yeah, it's like there's a lot of that stuff with these movies and it's just like you go look into a type of some random generic like horror movie from, you know, especially an indie horror movie, and I bet you there's at least one other name that a movie that shares the name, right?
That's what I love about Italian horror is there's no way to replicate those titles. It's like 15 words long.
Yeah. Oh, dude, I just watched Tenebrae or whatever the fuck it's called the other day, like for the first time, and I can't even remember the goddamn name of it, but the one with the author who's going to Rome and like to get this like is doing a publicity for his latest novel, and yeah, it's just that movie's dope though. It was really good. Another Shudder thing. I have to say though too, another favorite part of this of Hush is watching. She might be the nicest person in the world, but Samantha Sloan, who played the bitch on Midnight Mass, gets absolutely fucking gutted like real early on in this movie, and I'm like, eat it, you evil bitch.
Dude, right? It's funny when that happens. Yeah.
You're like,
yeah. You're like, good. And there's also that connection that the main character wrote the book Midnight Mass in Hush.
Yep.
So like it's already kind of fresh in your mind. Yep. To where like, you know, you watch Hush. If you've seen Midnight Mass first, you watch Hush and you're like, oh, Aaron, you know, oh, Bev. Yep. And like you kind of form these opinions on characters that you shouldn't already based on that.
They're Aaron, Bev, and Riley. They even say Riley, who's the main character, who at some point I thought was the killer in this, like until he removed the mask. I had generic bald guy, you know, like little guy, white dude in my head, and for some reason thought he was the killer.
You know what's a bummer is being familiar with John Gallagher, the actor that played the killer in this, before seeing this movie. Like I don't know if you've seen Short Term 12.
No, I haven't.
Oh, such a good movie with Brie Larson. Basically, she's a worker at this kind of like a boys' home, or like not boys, but like troubled kids' home. It's like a really good drama, and he's like such a sweetheart in that movie. That or like, you know, the second Cloverfield movie, or like, you know, he.
Oh yeah, that's where I knew him from.
He was in American Idiot, the Broadway version. Like this dude, you know what I mean? Like being familiar with that dude, and then watching this, you're like it was kind of hard for me to separate those two at first, but then I kind of had to force myself to, you know, to like think he's a piece of shit for the movie. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. It's like Samantha Soyan plays like a nice character in this, but you're like right after watching Midnight Mass, you're like, this fucking bitch. You're just like, it's like getting some of that out because that character is so like intense in that thing, and it's that whole thing. And it's also like her boyfriend plays the mayor on Midnight Mass.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's just Mike Flanagan using the same people over and over again, right? And it's my wife loves rewatching series way more than I do. Like I'll rewatch stuff like comedies mostly, and it's mostly when I'm like going to bed and stuff like that. But my wife has been like rewatching Bly Manor and Hill House, and so she's got that context. And
I haven't seen Bly Manor yet. I have Hill House.
Yeah, well, you need to watch. Have you watched Hill House?
I haven't watched Bly Manor yet. Yeah.
Oh, okay, but you have watched Hill House.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because one of the houses at Halloween Horror Nights is Hill House.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I'm just excited for that one.
Yeah, me and we figured out that me and Jerry are gonna be there at the same day. It's fucking
how random is
crazy.
that? It's synchronicity.
Yeah, it's yeah. And then my friend from here is gonna be there the next day. I thought she was gonna be there the same day, but but yeah, it's small fucking world, dude. It
that
really
and
is.
my brother's going, which is funny because no one knows my brother, but like my brother is a couple years older than me, and he's the complete opposite of me in every way. Like I'm so like Valley, like rad 24/7 kind of shit, and my brother is like the most Hispanic white dude of all time. Like my brother looks like he'd be in Blood In, Blood Out. My brother has like the handlebar mustache and like smile now, cry later, lowrider tattoos.
Does he have a teardrop tattoo?
No. See, he looks tough as fuck, but I think I have a better chance of killing someone than my brother does.
Yeah.
No, but like I asked him if he wanted to go because I am dying to see my brother who tries to put off this like I'm tough as fuck persona.
Yeah.
I'm so looking forward to get him scared shitless.
Yeah.
And seeing him maybe punch like an actor wearing Leatherface costume.
It's so funny, man. Like nothing. Like I have a real hard time getting scared. Mm-hmm. Like after everything I've watched, right? But jump scares get me all the time, and I know it's that simplest, like, I know it's that simplest, easy thing in the world, but they get me, man. I have clips of me jumping off the fucking out of my chair playing like jump scare games on my streams.
That is great.
And so it's like. I'm like, I want to be fucking in the air, 9 feet in the air. My wife laughs at me every time, too.
It happens to me when I don't expect it. Like, usually in, like, most horror films, I'll be like, okay, it's getting quiet, so obviously someone's going to jump out. But I went with my wife to see the Halsey movie in IMAX. And that was the last thing I imagined there being jump scares in. But there were really loud, like, things. And, like, I jumped and was like, oh, shit, a couple times. And, these tweens around me. Yeah. No. I would also recommend anyone watching that movie because it's probably my favorite movie of the year.
Halsey? I don't know that one.
Halsey? Like the musician, Halsey?
Yeah, I don't know that one. Yeah.
She has a new album that Trent Reznor produced called If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power. And she did this film, and it's like, it's kind of like it takes place in the kind of like, Marie Antoinette kind of era. And it has like witches involved and like a bunch of really cool stuff. It's like an hour long. It's like a movie that incorporates a lot of the new album, but like also has like very bold things to say. Yeah, it's great. Great stuff. It's on HBO Max now. It just dropped.
I'll have to check that out for sure. Sounds cool. Yeah, it's weird how like these more and more people are making like these just like solid hour films, right? And like not trying to like pull them up longer than that. And I wonder how much of that is COVID, restraints and whatnot, or in stuff like hosts being successful, right?
That or like bands and musicians, they'll be so fucking annoyed by this COVID existence that we'll just get like random surprise albums. Like I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan, like unabashedly, but like in a million years did I not expect 2 or 3 albums to drop in the last year,
Yeah. Well, it's like they're not touring as much, right? Like they've all been cut off the road. Like I just saw Heilung and they were at Red Rocks and it was so cool. And like I like a lot of their songs, don't get me wrong, but their music is all like, it's not like something you usually just sit down there and like jam out to, right? It's very like getting prepped for war kind of music, which is
tribal.
really dope. Like Yeah, I sent you that one song. You're like, I'm ready for battle.
What's funny is I saw so many people that I know that went to that same show, and I didn't know what they were going to at first. And I was just thinking, like, what the fuck is going on with all of these people I know? Like, are they joining Fury Road? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it
looked wild.
My friend did our makeup, and there were good pictures of it, and it was just a fucking good old time. And now we're going back with them to see Deadmau5, which I know little about him too, but I know some good stuff about it. Like, I enjoy what I know, right? So that'll be. It's so expensive though. Like, you pay $100 for a ticket, like, and so like buying my wife and me a ticket, $200, and then you're checking out at $265 because of fees and taxes and shit like that, and you're like, ooh, that hurts.
It's so hard to get used to that when you like kind of cut your teeth on like punk rock and hardcore music backgrounds. Like I'm used to like all age shows for like $10-15.
Yeah, dude, I grew up like going to when I was in high school, I get real into this Finger 11.
Yeah.
And I saw Finger 11 a shit ton of times in Cleveland, and like the Agora, and that was like $20-25 every time, and seeing stuff like I'm not Trapped. Trapped is the crazy ones. I'm thinking of all these bands that are like not big bands, right? Like going to see Alkaline Trio before everyone knew who Alkaline Trio was, like, and then like, of course, as soon as the dude joins Blink-182, everyone's like, oh my God, I gotta see Alkaline Trio.
See, that's frustrating to me because I've had a Good Morning tattoo on my wrist since that album came out, and I know exactly like Skiba and all those guys sent my son a onesie for like when he was born.
Dude.
Like, no, dude, Alkaline Trio is like probably one of my 5 favorite bands of all time, but it's so weird to get used to like the whole Blink-182 thing. Like, I'm supportive of it. Like, hey, it's cool. But it's weird. I miss that guy being dangerous.
Yeah, dude, I will never think that shaking like a dog shitting razor blades isn't like one of my favorite. Dude, you know what pisses me off about them though? Like, I've seen them 3 times, I think, and one of them, like the first time I saw them or the second time I saw them, they just didn't play radio the whole time. I'm like, you motherfuckers, what are you doing? I understand you have all these albums, but radio, assholes.
I'm not that dude that gets pissed if a band doesn't play certain songs, but I would be so furious if I saw Alkaline Trio and they didn't play radio.
Yep. It was so much that like a couple years ago, they did the album tour they were doing. Mm-hmm. And I was like, no, I have to go. I have to go for that album. I'm going. And then me and my buddy went and we had a good time, but it was like, those tickets got wonked up too, or I would have gone more. I'm like, how are you? So it doesn't make any sense. And now we have Ghost touring and doing the same arena here that fucking Billie Eilish is going to. And I'm like,
that's wild. Those big shows are insane. My wife and I went to see Taylor Swift, I think in 2017. And it was in like this massive football stadium. And it was like the first show like that I had ever been to. Because, I mean, like I said, $15 punk rock shows.
Yeah.
And it was just such a different experience doing that.
Yeah. I've been to 2 arena shows. I went and saw, when like high school, I think it was, I went and saw Creed and someone else at the Gund Arena in Cleveland. And then a couple years ago, I went and my buddy drugged me to see the last Black Sabbath tour that they did with Ozzy and everything like that. And we had floor tickets at the Pepsi Center. And I'm like, and I didn't pay for it because I didn't have any money to give him. And he was like, fine, someone to go with me. So and that was a good time. So, but yeah, it's it's a lot, man. Like it's funny going off about punk rock and stuff because like it very much feels like Flanigan's like kind of like a punk rock film director, right? Mm-hmm. Like he's a very like, I'm gonna go do this. I'm gonna do it very like. This movie doesn't have very many kills in it, right? Like you got 1, 2, like 3 kills in the movie, right?
I think maybe 3 kills in a hand.
Yeah. Dude, that hand, we talked about that last week with the Midnight Mass and Flanagan's like kink of hand torture. The hand scene in this movie is not easy to watch. It's so
mean because he slams the door on it and he just kind of kicks it.
Yeah. No, he stomps on it. Like,
stomps on it.
Like he's doing like like there's a spider he wants to get rid of. He just fucking steps on her hand, and then they show it, and like I'm assuming it's all like prosthetics, and her fingers are all like going in, like it looks like a fucking like a gang sign someone's making with her hand. Their fingers are so fucked up, and it's like and you just like and then she's running around, and that's like towards the very, very end of the movie, but like it's like, man, that fucking is rough. It's it is just it's not easy to watch, right?
There's something that happens. It either does or doesn't happen in these home invasion movies. And if I'm in a really downer mood, I'm fine with it not happening. It's like there's a moment in these movies where the person realizes that if they don't fight back, they're dead.
Yeah.
Or in like The Strangers or movies like that, they think that they're good at fighting back and they just suck and they die.
Yeah.
But like in Hush, I love it. There is a moment where she's basically having to like realizing that, hey, this dude's really into wanting me dead. I need to figure out ways to outsmart him. And so like it's that kind of like game of cat and mouse that I really love for the second half of the movie.
It's very Tom and Jerry, like with like real extreme violence. Because like this movie does some things I usually don't like that I actually kind of enjoy how Flanagan does them, because I usually hate the it was all a dream thing. Mm-hmm. And this movie does that a couple times, but they do it with that preposition of like, no, you like the I don't know, preposition is not the word I'm looking for, but they do it with the like, they set it up early on in the movie that this character, she writes Midnight Mass, like we were talking about, and she tells her friend that she has what her mom called writer's brain, and she basically sees. It's kind of like a more realistic version of Doctor Strange and Infinity War, where he's like, I saw a billion possibilities. And then she's like sees possibilities for all the situations her characters are in. But you learn later on that she transitions that into, her brain really works like that. Her brain is thinking about all the possibilities of all these things. And that's how she tells stories. And they set it up in like, even with her writing, where she's got like 9 different endings she's trying to put out, right? Which is weird because it seems like she's writing Midnight Mass, but Midnight Mass is already out. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Like because like what in her book, it's like the Midnight Mass characters, and then but her neighbor Sarah brings her back her Midnight Mass book. So it's a cool little thing. If you know Midnight Mass though, and you go back and watch that, you're like, oh, because it might not have seemed like, it probably didn't seem like that before Midnight Mass came out, right? Because the characters and all that stuff, right? So
no, before Midnight Mass came out, the only thing that was like recurring to me is seeing Midnight Mass again in Gerald's Game by Mike Flanagan. I was like, oh, okay, that must mean something. Yeah, and like I am stoked. Yeah. I just read that he's thinking about actually writing the novel, which, dude, I would love to read a Midnight Mass novel.
He's got to be close, man. He's got all this stuff in there and all this like legend and all this like, you know, like he's written stuff like he probably, I mean, it would take work, don't get me wrong, but he's got this idea and he's got the whole script written out and all that stuff.
There's no way there's not a Bible for all those characters already. Yeah. How in depth each of those characters and their stories are. That dude knows every single bit of history for that island. And I want to read that so bad if that happens.
He would just, I mean, you just take script and you like, I'm not saying it's super easy, but you just go in and transition it into a more like narrative story, right? Like I would be down. He's like, and did you see he's doing a bunch of Edgar Allan Poe stories for Netflix too?
I'm just waiting for the ball to drop and everyone starts hating Mike Flanagan because he's one of those people that's just like, dude, you're kind of too good to be true. But then every time he releases something, you're like, well, no, it's just true. Like,
and then they find out there's 12 hookers buried in his basement,
right?
And
we're like, it's okay. You know, that's okay. No one's perfect. No, we've all been there. No, no, like it's funny because like I don't throw around the whole Masters of Horror thing very. Yeah. You know, like I think it's like Scream Queens. Like get out of here with that. Like someone that could fart in a movie once will be labeled a Scream Queen. You know, like it doesn't take much. But I think Mike Flanagan is one of the few exceptions to that. Like 100%. That guy, That guy, the only filmmaker I think that gives me the same feeling as far as just having that kind of punk rock ethos, but also being like a really professional studio director. I think Carpenter's the only person that comes into mind in like the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. I mean, them making that movie and spending how much of their budget on a camera and Halloween, that whole movie was completely punk rock. And it often feels that like a lot of the times that these guys start off like that and then they don't stay or can't stay. Like I think Eli Roth kind of started like that and then like he exhausted every idea in his head. And that motherfucker remaking his own movie might have been the worst. Like, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? You're remaking your own movie from 15 years ago, you idiot. Like, and I really liked his early career. I really liked Hostel. I really liked The Cabin in the, or what's it called? Cabin Fever.
Yeah.
Like when they came out, they were cool movies. But then he starts doing like stuff that I never watched The Green Inferno. I heard that was okay. I like just a lot of stuff like, I don't know. Like the guy knows his the documentaries he made for Shudder were really good. The History of Horror movie.
Watching History of Horror every season. I'm down with that. I think my issue is I just don't like him. Yeah, like I've had to sit down with that guy a couple times for interviews. And that dude, the last time was for Hemlock Grove. I had to sit down with him and Famke Janssen in a hotel in Hollywood for Fangoria. And that dude sized me up the entire interview to the point where it's just like, I wanted to deck the guy how uncomfortable this dude was making me feel.
Yeah. Dude, I really think that motherfucker got praised so much for Hostel and Cabin Fever that he decided that his shit didn't stink, right? Like it's that thing where you're like, dude, you haven't put out anything like besides the History of Horror things that were worth the shit like since Hostel 2 and like it's like you remade your own movie, you dumb motherfucker. Like I don't know who else. Like the only other person I ever think of doing that was the Funny Games director who did like the was it Swedish or whatever version, and then the English version like the same time. But like people don't remake their own movies, like especially in their own language.
It was a different director, the Cabin Fever remake, but it was the same exact Eli Roth script, the same exact script. Like
didn't he produce it?
He was involved, heavily involved.
Yeah,
but like that's my only reluctance. Like my wife and I are such huge Borderlands fans, and Eli Roth just finished filming the Borderlands movie.
Yeah,
so like I'm like, but then Jamie Lee Curtis as Tannis, like okay, I could get on board with that, but I'm
like, who decided that this motherfucker directing a big time action movie was a good idea?
Like we all know that Paul W.S. Anderson should have done it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, dude. No more.
Yeah.
I had fun with Monster Hunter, like that movie, but it was bad. Like it was not a good movie. So, oh man, this movie, like, Hush is about what is it like an hour and 42 minutes?
It's
or 22 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel that long.
And it's another one that just hits the ground running and does a really good job of it, like setting up things early on that come back later on. Also, there are a couple scenes in this movie I really fucking love. The first one I want to bring up, when the man, he's called on IMDb, he's called The Man, picks up Sarah's body and is using her like a mannequin or something, like a dummy or something like that, and using her hand against the window. That scene is so fucking demented. I fucking love
that. And like when he's like threatening her cat.
Yeah.
What a dick.
Like, you're gonna see your mommy soon, or she's gonna see you. You're like, you're gonna fucking threaten a cat named bitch? Really, dude? Come on, man.
That and like one of the many things I love about this movie is I never in my entire life thought I would think a crossbow was cool.
Yeah, dude, that's another thing. Is such fucking good storytelling is when she's looking at that. She's trying to figure out the crossbow after she gets it from him, and she finds the notches on there. It's such a good thing where it's like they're just showing you how much of a psychopath this motherfucker is without showing you. They're like they're using this very like it's this very cool storytelling method where it's just like it's a little nod to what this guy's done, but like it's not. It's just a like you kind of have to think about it and you go, what is? Oh, this motherfucker has killed like there's like 14 things on there or something like that. There's a lot of them. This movie actually kind of it's funny because it kind of reminds me of like that of like Hellfest where the guy goes and just kills people randomly, like and
just goes home.
Like at these, then just goes home. That movie, man, I like I've said before, but man, that movie surprised me with how much fun it was. But like,
see, I expected, to be honest, I expected Hellfest to not be as much fun because my friend Seth wrote it, and that movie was kind of like it was an idea from someone else, and then he came on board and rewrote it from page one, and then a couple other people came on to help write it. And so with as many people involved in a production like that, usually it's like the first line, like, oh, God. But, dude, I had so much fucking fun with Hellfest.
Yeah. That movie reminds me of a lot of Haunt. Yeah. I know it came out before Haunt, but, like, it's got the same thing where it's like it's just like a bigger budget version of it. And you think about it, man, like if somebody was gonna run around fucking people up like that and do like that would be a perfect setting for it. Like really, it's like kind of like this where they're like they feel like they're in the middle of the nowhere in this house, right? Like it feels like it almost feels like this hush house feels like there's no roads or anything like that, right? Like it.
Well, it's kind of like that great secluded writer's getaway that every writer wants to have. Like, there's been so many times where my wife and I have thought about, like, because she's an artist, she's a painter, and, I write. So we've always had this idea, like, oh, you know what, let's go up by the woods and just get a cabin away from anywhere to just get, like, stuff done for a weekend. And it's like, I think every writer or any creative person in general wants that every once in a while. And I think the House in Hush is like the epitome of that, and that also adds to, like, the danger. She wants something away from anyone. And that's also the most dangerous thing that you can do at the same time in the situation. Yeah. It's like this guy obviously targets her house in the area because of that fact, right? He's killing the friend and her boyfriend and trying to kill her because there's no one else around. And the other scene that I really am like, oh, this motherfucker in this movie, when the boyfriend comes after him and then like she pounds on the window, that's like the stupidest thing she could do. Like it's another thing that's like good writing because it's like these people panicking in these situations, and the dude stabs the bigger dude in the neck, and he's like, it's okay, it's over now, dude. It's okay. Like the way he's talking to him like a dying animal is like it. If you've ever had to put a dog down and like being there when they did it, that's very much what it felt like, but from a sociopath, right? Like it's very like you're dying, you dumb motherfucker. Just die and I won. And well, there's like no feeling when it. That's the thing. It seems like there's no feeling that the man has with any of the victims except the main character. Like he's getting such enjoyment out of this, and it feels like the other characters are almost just to get it done to eventually get to her. Yeah. Well, it's very like the boyfriend. It was. You have to wonder if he. Like Sarah was like a plan because like he kills her like after she goes over to visit Maddie's house, right? And you go, it kind of seems like he was watching her house and it picked Sarah off like when she was leaving her house or something. And so it's like that she's just collateral damage. Like he had picked this woman out for whatever reason. He picked her out. Like it's completely. It's the line from The Strangers. Why us? Because you were home, kind of thing, right? That's the scariest line in that movie. Yeah, exactly. And man, it's just so like, it's so you just like. It's the most horrifying thing because of everything happening in this movie, and they just do a very good job of just making this like because the setup isn't like everything besides her being deaf isn't super original, right? Like it's it's a home invasion movie, but they use that as such a powerful
tool in this movie, and it comes into play with like things like the breathing on the back of her neck later on, and the fire alarm. The fire alarm is like the very, very early warnings of this, and I'd never known before watching this movie, but you think about it, that deaf people have to have these specific fire alarms that are so loud that you can feel the bass in them, basically. Which that thing is fucking like nightmare fuel, man. That thing is like, you ever like have a fire alarm that is like just like kind of going wonky, and you're like, shut up, like there's like, it's like you put new batteries in it, or it's like replace it and there's nothing in your house, but like,
see, my problem is I have really bad vertigo and a damaged eardrum in my left ear. So really loud sounds fuck me up so bad to where like I've had it a couple to 2 or 3 times in the last year where fire alarms in our house would go off over like battery stuff. And my ear starts instantly hurting to where I'll just grab the closest chair, stand up on it, and just rip the thing out of the wall and just destroy it, into where I'll have to get a new one immediately.
Yeah, man, that's just fucked up. Man, I was saying like before, like the storytelling were the prerequisites where things were all a dream kind of thing, but like her foretelling events usually don't like, but I really like how they do it in this movie because of it's not long and it's very like going with the character. Like Kate Siegel, for someone who's not deaf, did a really, really good job of, I wonder how much sign language she learned for this role, because it feels like she knows sign language. You know what I mean?
See, it was so convincing for me when I first watched it that I thought she was deaf. I remember, my wife and I, we took a bus into LA because we didn't want to drive. And there was a commercial for like some over-the-counter medication or something that she starred in. And we were like, what the fuck? Isn't that the actress from Hush? Like, she's not deaf? What the hell? That's like when DiCaprio got nominated for an Oscar for What's Eating Gilbert Grape, and everyone was like, wait, what? That kid's not challenged?
Yeah. It's when you do that stuff well, but that problem is if you go too far, you end up like John Travolta and the Fanatic. And it's just like, no, you fucked up. I mean, it's that's what the joke of Tropic Thunder was that Ben Stiller's character went too far, right? He overdid it and it was too much, right?
Yeah.
Oh man. She does such a good job at it. Like, and it's one of those reasons why this movie feels so authentic, is because of her acting in this, and like just doing this thing where it's like you're living this weird secluded life. It really feels like this like her Maddie's character is very like avoiding the rest of the world, right? It seems like she talks to her sister early on, and like she had a bad breakup, and it kind of seems like she's kind of secluded herself because of that, and she points off to like her writing, but like it really seems like she's just trying to get away from the entire world that's why she lives where she does, right?
Well, that and no, I agree 100% with that. That, and I think that she uses writing as a way to be in control of at least one thing. You know, I know for me personally, when my life's kind of going through the ringer, sitting down to write is the only thing I have control of at that time. And it seems like in Hush, it's the same way, that things are so stressful for her outside of that she's kind of putting herself away. I don't want to deal with all these things going on, but I do want to deal with the one thing that I can control, and that's me being creative.
Yeah. Also, I think there's a thing that's like, it kind of feels like she uses like at the beginning of the movie, I don't know if she views it or like is doing it on accident. She kind of seems like she's using her disability as a crutch. You know what I mean? Like she's like, oh, I can't do this because of this. I can't do this because of this. And then like she kind of realizes, like when she goes into that inner monologue at the end in her mom's voice, like she says at one point that her inner brain thoughts are her inner brain are in her mom's voice, or in her brain thoughts. Guys, I talk a lot, and these are the words that come out of my mouth. Like she's like she kind of realizes how strong she's capable of being, and how she needs that and needs to like not rely on like not be like concentrating on her weakness. She needs to be concentrating on her strengths. And I think that's kind of like, it kind of feels like it's a character transition, like a character like level up. Level is a good way to put it, right? I think
it's somebody that at the beginning of the movie feels sorry for themselves because of ailment, according to some people, and by the end of the movie, it's the fact that she needs to focus more on the senses she does have that makes her survive. Her deafness is the reason she survives in the movie. And like you said, it's her strength and not her weakness.
Yeah. It's why she feels his breath on the back of her neck. It's why she can like set that alarm off and she's not affected by it and he is. It's all that stuff, and it's like it just shows that like you can. It doesn't matter like how it feels like he's saying like it doesn't matter how talented, how good you are. Anyone can like get down on themselves and get down in the situation, right? I always feel like Mike Flanagan's writing like in directing like these like bigger meaning of life kind of like things into his horror, which I really, really approve of.
Oh, dude, hell yeah! It's so. Yeah. I always found his writing to be very existentialist. Like this one, or I mean, fuck, man. I know it was in the novel too, but like, oh god, the director's cut of Dr. Sleep, man. Yeah. As someone that's been a recovering alcoholic for years, like god, just the writing in that movie just blew me away. Or like Midnight Mass, man. Yeah. Like this, it's a director that can tackle things from like alcoholism, substance abuse, lack of faith, forgiveness, self-forgiveness, forgiveness to others, all these different things. And that's when you could tell a filmmaker's been through some shit himself. Yeah. You know what I mean? When they're not afraid to kind of make films that are actually about something. And I think that's what's great. When you can be a studio director, but also make everything you do about shit too.
Yeah. I mean, that's the great thing about horror, because horror can tackle almost anything like that, right? Horror can tackle loss. Horror can tackle fear. And there's a spider crawling along in my microphone here. You just see. But they could tackle anything like that, and it's like crazy that they can do it. And because I've talked about it before, but like it's an expectation thing. It's like that lack of expectation for horror, because people are like, oh, it's just horror, and it gives them that world to like do things. And like Jordan Peele is doing all these really like statement films about our society and stuff like that. And what Flanagan's doing is just like, it's such a resurgence of like what horror means. I mean, even like Lee Parnell and what he's doing with like things like Upgrade, right, and Invisible Man, like all these kind of, I mean, they're technology awareness movies. Like, and when you do all that and you do all this stuff about making statements about this stuff and pointing out what could go wrong or what is wrong, and you just do it in a horror movie, you could sit there and like be really entertained and then walk out and go, fuck, and just think about that stuff, because that means like leaves a mark, and it leaves like, I mean, go back to like A Night of the Living Dead, right? And what other stuff Romero was doing. And Romero was, you could talk about punk rock horror directors. Mm-hmm. Romero was completely like that in like doing Night of the Living Dead and then going in. And Dawn of the Dead is like one of the most like anti-consumerism movies of all time, right? And making these social commentaries inside these horror movies that you might not notice right away. But again, because it's horror and because of where you're doing and what kind of settings, and you can do anything with it, right? Like this is the kind of like pieces of art that like mean a lot to society, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's the genre where you can tackle really important things, and people could. It's also the genre that you could tackle very important things and big statements and big feelings that you have about things, but people could also just experience them on the surface and be entertained. Yeah. But if you're looking for something really rich and meaty, like that, I love that. Where it's like you get these Oscar baiting movies from like just dramas and shit, and you can enjoy those. You can enjoy this without feeling either guilty or like shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like a horror, if you don't want to think about, like, dude, I could watch Daniel Wasn't Real on a bad day where I don't feel like thinking about things and be like, man, I love that movie. Or I could watch it on a day where I'm like, I really like to think about a movie that makes me think about my own bad mental health. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like horror is the one genre that allows you to do that.
Yeah. And because it can be horror comedy, it could be horror drama, it could be
horrible.
Yeah, exactly. Whoa, yeah. There's a lot of that. My buddy was who used to be a editor at Collider. He was just going through over the last week. He watched all the Friday the 13th movies, or maybe he stopped at. He didn't watch the reboot in the Freddy versus Jason, but I kept getting messages from him during them, and he's like comments for someone who hasn't seen the movies in years, and I'm just giggling at him because and he's like, I'm watching 5. I'm like, it's made by a porno director, just be wary. So it's Friday the 13th is a perfect example of movies that don't have much to say other than they're entertaining films. But yeah, it's so much.
And the thing is that there's nothing wrong with that. And I think so many people don't get that every movie has to be either the best or worst. And some movies are just fun to watch. I've not learned a single thing about what it is to be a human being from any Friday the 13th film. But bet your ass that I will watch every fucking one of them, even the ones I don't like if they're on TV.
Yep, exactly, man. It's like, it's why I have like lying around me, like behind my monitors and around my room. I probably have 3 copies of most of the Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. It's like
I'm just waiting for my wife to like put the gauntlet down and be like, listen, no more copies of Halloween movies. Yeah, because I just got the 4Ks of the first 5, and it's like, how many copies of these movies do I need? All of them.
Last year I rebought myself for Christmas and had my wife give it to me the Friday collection they put out.
Oh yeah,
because it's one of the only ones I didn't own 9 or 10 because they're the ones where they went over to New Line, and it was like I hadn't seen Jason Goes to Hell and like. In a really, really long time. If I might not have ever seen it. Like that's one of those
Don't you
movies
regret that decision now?
Yeah, I mean, kind of, yeah. But like, yeah, it's all that shit where these big old these franchises have like they changed like production companies every other film, and it makes like putting all of them together just a giant pain in the ass, right? And now it's like that's how you get into the thing where you're like, we got the Child's Play shows coming out here pretty soon, and then like there could but they don't own the term Chucky, which is why like the Chucky movie that came out a couple years ago was called Chucky, but then it wasn't a demonic serial killer, it was a over like all that shit, like it's production. We talked about the whole silly Friday lawsuit last week, and so all that stuff is like this stuff gets so complicated after a while, right?
And it doesn't need to be like the Friday stuff, especially. Like, did we really need over a decade of 2 old guys bickering over a movie where a guy wearing a hockey mask kills horny teenagers?
No.
Do you know how many fucking sequels we could have had by now?
Yeah, you could have. I mean, and how many sequels? You go look at how many sequels were started and like go on into production all the way up until the LeBron James one a couple years ago, right? That you're like, I don't. Yeah,
there could have been like, so many sequels by now that they would have gotten so bad that they would have let me do the music to one of them at least. That's what I'm pissed about. Like, I don't care if Halloween Kills or Halloween Ends does well. I care about the reboot after that I'm going to be trying so hard to do the music for.
Yeah. Well, it's gonna, and you know what's gonna happen because Halloween Kills or Ends comes out next year. Well, before 2030, we'll get another one. I mean, there's no way we don't. Like the so much money and all that stuff.
Well, because the Halloween Ends and Halloween Kills is kind of a contained trilogy. I think that there's no way that we're not gonna get another reboot. Like this, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh no, we could keep this series going on forever No, Halloween Ends is the end of this particular storyline. So we'll get another one.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be, you have to, like, all these, the only movie that hasn't, I mean, Nightmare's been a while too, but like all these movies have been doing something over the last couple decades, right? Like, so it's just going to keep everything, even Leprechaun got the Sci-Fi Channel one a couple years ago. I last year, I think it was last year or maybe early this year, I started watching through all those movies, and I was having real fun until the Leprechaun went into space, and that CG, I was like, nope, can't do it.
Was that before or after the Leprechaun went to the hood?
That was before.
Okay.
Leprechaun 4 was the in space, and then 5 is when he goes to the hood with Ice-T. So, yeah, or Back to the Hood. Yeah. Oh shit. Okay. I can't suggest this movie enough though. Like, this movie is so much fun. It shows early. This might have been the first Mike Flanagan thing I actually watched, I think. And then like before Haunting of Hill House came out. And then I went and watched the other one, Oculus, which is, I still think, a completely underrated movie.
And a random movie that was produced by WWE.
Yeah. Did they produce that one?
I think so.
Man, they did some weird horror movies back in the, like, because they did See No Evil with Kane, who's now the mayor of some town in Tennessee, which is
I just looked it up. WWE was one of the producers of Oculus.
That's why there's sports entertainment, Jerry. There's sports entertainment. Yep. Oh. Man, Vince McMahon's erection, a raging hard-on for giant beefy men is very impressive. They
should have done the promotional shit that WWE does to tie into different movies, but instead of David Arquette win the belt this time, it could be like Mike Flanagan.
Oh my God, that movie is one thing, Mike. You don't have to do this all the time. But can you make one happy ending? Just one time? Is it possible?
Right.
Is it possible that you give us one happy ending, Mike Flanagan?
Just one.
Because I don't think it is. He's never done. Has he ever done a happy ending?
I think it depends on what you consider happy. I don't think so, but I think maybe the director's cut of Dr. Sleep, maybe, because Danny's still dead, but then the little girl's alive and happy. So I guess.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. How much you've like raved about that? I have to watch that. Track down the director's cut of that and see it. So, Mike, dude, I've tried to show my wife The Shining 2 or 3 times now because she's never seen it, and every single time, because that movie is 8 hours long, we get distracted by something else in the middle of it, like something comes up in real life, and so. After I finally get her to watch it, I'm going to have to go adventure and find the director's cut of that. So
I think that Spider's looking for the director's cut.
Yeah, I know, man. You guys, I have a mic arm sitting here, and there's this spider hanging out on my mic arm, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck, but he's pretty entertaining. He's real white, like bright white, so it's easy to track him in my super bright LED lights. Okay. Yeah, this movie's awesome. I mean, you agree, right, Jerry?
Yeah, I love it. Huge fan.
Yeah, it's okay. We decided, Jerry picked out a movie for after I get back to from Cali next weekend. We're gonna watch. What's the movie we're watching next week?
It is 1990's The First Power. It is a great movie. Lou Diamond Phillips plays a detective going after a satanic serial killer who ends up being able to possess homeless people's bodies.
I love that, man. That also sounds like it also kind of has a Shocker vibe. We were talking about that Shocker in Fallen with Denzel War. I just said Denzel War.
Dude,
Denzel
that
Ward
is such a
player
good
for the Browns.
Dude, that sounds like a badass warrior name right there. If I ever have another kid, I'm just gonna name him Denzel War.
Yeah, and Denzel Washington and John Goodman, man. I saw John Goodman on the whatever that show's called now that Roseanne used to be on before she was stupid. And that motherfucker looks skinny as shit these days, man.
I always want to be happy for him, but then I'll be really happy for him, and then a year later I'll see him and he's like way different. It's like, I don't want to be super happy if, he's going to gain it back.
Yeah.
Because I don't know which version of himself he likes the best.
Yeah. Well, that's like super bad. Jonah, what's his name? Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
That motherfucker, you'll see him and he weighs 120 pounds, and then the next time you see him, he's 430. You're like, what the fuck is this dude doing?
And dude, I'm not body shaming whatsoever. If anyone wants to be 430, that's fine. But just consistency is all I'm asking for.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's like I'm not either. It's just like the yo-yoing. It's like fucking Jared Leto, who decided to gain all that weight for that movie about the dude who killed the dude from the Beatles.
I always love it when that happens. They gain all this weight for movies that end up being steaming piles of shit that no one watches.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like who's the other one that I always think of Christian Bale and The Machinist.
That dude or Tom Hardy, man.
Yeah, Tom Hardy does that shit too, man. Those crazy motherfuckers, man. Every time someone has to work with one of those guys while they're being crazy, the method actors, and you're just like, I'm glad you guys are really good at this, but...
How do they do it? How does Christian Bale go from The Machinist to Batman Begins next? Directly after that. I've been trying to lose, quarantine weight for a fucking year, and I can't do that.
But dude... Because you're not a multi-millionaire with professional trainers and cooks, dude. That's why you get all that shit. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's possible.
Yeah, that's my goal. Then.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna do that next week, so that I'm excited for that. I've never seen it. Lou Diamond Phillips is dope, man. I really enjoy him in most things that he does. So
then there's a part where the serial killer is wearing this creepy mask and he's going after Lou Diamond Phillips, and the serial killer looks up and there's a ceiling fan, and he rips it out of the ceiling, and with his powers makes the blades turn and rocks towards Lou Diamond Phillips. It is such a fucking cool movie, and it has Bubba from Forrest Gump as a cop.
Nice, Bubba. I'll never stop going, Lieutenant Dan.
You got
I really, 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 really like Forrest Gump, but I have a weird contempt for Forrest Gump because it won Best Picture over two of my favorite movies of all time, Shawshank and Pulp Fiction.
Oh my God.
So that year,
right.
Yeah. So that's why I've always been like, Forrest Gump, I fucking kind of hate you. I don't. You're really good, but fucking good.
That and Shawshank didn't even make much money, which is weird because it's one of the best movies ever.
Yeah. Well, now it gets money for the 8,000 times it plays on TBS and TNT every year. That movie makes so much money from just distribution, replay rights, right? Man, that movie gets played. I think the only movie that gets played more is Christmas Story.
Yeah.
And that's only because Christmas Story is on 24/7 for 3 months straight. So. Yeah. Okay, man. Well, dude, I have a blast talking about this. I knew we were going to do this last week, but then when I finished Midnight Mass in time, and I was like, Midnight Mass, and it's a good combo talking about these two, and I think talking about Midnight Mass first was better for both of us because we had just watched it all.
That and Two Vagrants kind of stabbed each other outside of my
Yeah, we were sitting there, and I'm like, we were going to take an hour break. We were like, Jerry ordered pizza, and I went to get some food, and I'm like, I get the Halloween Kills in real life description on my timeline. There's hobos stabbing each other. There's fires. There's cops. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Jerry, what is happening in your life? If it's not your dad disappearing to go to get donuts in the middle of the nowhere, it's you getting hobo knife.
Dude, it was 2 a.m. in the morning last night. My wife and I were up and we heard ambulances and we were like, oh great, what now? And so we checked the local site to see what it was, and there was a house that blew up and was on fire maybe 2 blocks away from us.
That's making meth is a dangerous activity.
Central Valley.
Okay. Well, Jerry, you want to plug your stuff? I mean, it's just you just usually just do your Twitter, right? Jerry is just okay.
Yeah, Jerry is just okay on Twitter. I have a new EP coming out on Halloween called Spells. You can pre-order that. rainydaysforghosts.bandcamp.com.
By the way,
yeah.
By the way, did you take those pictures of your wife? Because they're fucking dope.
I did not. That was a photographer that did that. I loved them so much that I was just like, hey, can I use one of those for the album cover?
Yeah.
She was like, yeah. Sure. I'm a fan.
That's really cool.
I think I'm more of a fan of the ones that I couldn't post.
I mean, that would probably be something that we both know where that went. Or I'm just guessing, but my brain is a fucked up place. So
that's all right.
But
I'd be really stoked if anyone checked that out. There's 2 songs you can look up already.
Dude, I will be purchasing that when it comes out. So support my dude Jerry. So and everything with us, murdermoose.com. We hit 1,000 downloads recently, which is fucking dope. It took a while, but we got there, and it's just slow and steady. And we have our Twitter, Murder Moose Pod, and we have a Discord, which you can find a link to on the Twitter. So, and I'm Rod_Johnston on Twitch and Twitter and everywhere else. So, thanks for listening, guys, and we will catch you guys later. Bye.